ignore the screen for the moment. Linda there's reminded me of something. You remember I talked about a journey and I was sharing with you. Doesn't mean I'm right. Red Ice Radio. Familiar to a lot of people, isn't it? Red Ice Radio. We happened to be listening to a recent podcast by the lady on Radio 314 on the way here. And she was saying how her journey had gone from waking up to the hidden hand, the hidden conspiracy, to realising that there's a genocide against the Europeans, basically. And I think that's right. That's where I stand now. And Linda, I think, agrees as well. And of course, the motive is probably that we're goy and we're expendable. Yes. It doesn't matter whether we're Europeans or not. But to some extent, it's a compliment because we're getting it first, aren't we? The Heaves aren't seeking to wipe out Africans just yet, are they?
So actually, they're doing that via Bill Gates.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, okay. Okay. So it's interesting, isn't it? Linda and I never met before, have we? Yeah. We come to the same conclusion about stuff, and that's the value of coming to these meetings, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. I don't know everything, but I've got a good memory, and I've got a good memory because I was taught, and you can learn it too. Okay. So I'm not a smart ass. Okay. Just a quick one. Criminal Justice and Courts Act. Anyone come across this? Okay. This is a quick lesson in how to interpret an Act of Parliament, and it's a tool to be used. Our oppressors are wearing yellow jackets, aren't they, and no hats, a lot of them. Okay. No, I'm referring to. Here's the Act of Parliament. Corrupts and other improperly exercise of police powers and privileges. A police constable commits the offence if he or she exercises the powers and privileges of constable improperly and knows or ought to know the exercise is improper. Came into effect in February this year, Royal Assent February this year. So if you say to a constable you can't do that and you can back it up, he's got a problem, hasn't he? He's got a problem.
Would this apply retrospectively?
My understanding is only from the February this year, because the principle is Act of Parliaments aren't retrospective. So you're thinking all sorts of questions, aren't you? So let's think about this. Now, when you study an Act of Parliament, there's a couple of aids to your understanding. If you go to legislation.gov.uk, it'll have explanatory notes. So you may not notice a little tab. Have a closer look next time you go. It's got explanatory notes. So they're explanatory notes. And section 26 of the Act of Parliament is explained. And the other is Hansard. The other is Hansard. Hansard is the written record of debates, isn't it? Okay, so I'll tell you the story because you remember it better if you know the story. It's 1992, and there's a judgment called Pepper against Hart. And Mr. Pepper is an inspector of taxes. And Mr. Hart is a teacher in a posh private school who's got a flat. So an Act of Parliament goes through. It's to do with income tax. So Mr. Hart, Mr. Pepper, the income tax man, thinks that Mr. Hart should start paying income tax on this flat because he hasn't paid it previously. So Mr. Pepper, the tax inspector, reads the Act of Parliament. It's a bit vague, but he says, "Okay, I think I can screw this person for tax." But Mr. Hart is a bit shrewd, and he reads what was said when it's debated in Parliament, because the legislative process is this: a politician, an MP, wants an Act of Parliament to do something, doesn't he? Get votes for me, or screw my enemies, or whatever. So he goes and sees a parliamentary draftsman. I had an hour and a half conversation with a parliamentary draftsman once. Parliamentary draftsman is a high-powered barrister with a good knowledge of the law, employed by the Cabinet Office. So the MP sits down with the barrister, and they write a list of things that the MP wants the Act of Parliament to do, but it's written in such a way it doesn't contradict anything else and cause legal problems. That's why the barrister needs to be an experienced man. So that's known as a bill. And you've heard about the first reading, the second reading. So the first reading is it's read out in both houses of Parliament, the Lords and Commons, and there's no comment on it. Then a copy is left in the library, so any MP that's interested can read it, and then they have the second reading and debate. So a sponsor of the bill, the MP that wants this to be created, then reads it out line by line, and other MPs can ask him questions, and other members of the House of Lords can ask questions. It's good to read those debates because you get the most guidance from the awkward sods, our equivalent. What do you mean by this? An example would be, you've talked about the right to bear arms, haven't we? The first Firearms Act is 1920. It's an anti-revolution measure. 3 Acts of Parliament were passed in 1920, or given the year 1920, which were oppressive. And the reason is there'd been a revolution in Russia in 1917. A cousin of the King of England had been shot in a basement. There was a danger of revolution in the UK because the suggestion that British soldiers cheerfully climbed out of their trenches and walked towards machine guns They did in the first part of the war, but they didn't in the second, and there were large mutinies on the Western Front, and some regions weren't under the control of the officers. The Army's solution was to recruit what we now know psychopaths to go and shoot their own fellow soldiers, and a lot of those psychopaths ended up in Southern Ireland causing problems with the Black and Tans. For any Irishmen here, yeah. Black and Tan refers to they had some parts of their uniform were police and some were army, Black and Tans. The government realised it's got a problem with revolution. A committee is formed, the Blackwell Committee. Minutes were secret for about 70 years, but came out eventually. And they passed 3 pieces of legislation. Now, in order to prosecute the First World War, there was a thing called the Defence of the Realm Act 1915, which purported to put the country on an emergency measure basis. And they would claim, it's an emergency, we can do what we like. But the common law rule is, in an emergency you can do what you like, except for treason and murder. So let me give you an example. In Northern Ireland, innocent people have been arrested, captured by the IRA, and their members of their families held hostage, and they've been sent with a bomb to go up and blow up a police station. Okay, and the person who's been sent with the bomb has got the defence. But I had to do it because life was threatened. But harshly, common law, that's not a defence because you can't murder somebody. Okay, and the same principle applies for treason. Treason is not a defence to committing a serious crime. But I digress. So it's 1915 and got this Emergency Powers Act. So they passed 3 pieces of legislation. First is the Police Act the Police Act 1919. Police went on strike in 1919. The war had finished. Their wages were frozen for many years, and married policemen were unable to feed their children. There's the Zob story. The Federation was originally the police union, and they go on strike in 1919. Every man was sacked. When I joined in 1978, my dad, who knew men who were in the force at that stage, said, "Don't you ever consider going on strike, son? You remember what happened to the men in 1919." So what the Police Act 1919 did, it infringed the policeman's common law rights to freedom of assembly and freedom of speech and the right to petition. Okay, freedom of assembly you can get together, freedom of speech is you can talk about anything you like, and the right to petition is the right to go to the Crown and say, look here, you're out of order, and not suffer a consequence. But as far as policemen are concerned, they don't have it anymore, which I think is probably acceptable. Except for ACPO, of course. ACPO talk politics all the time, don't they? Isn't that the problem with them? Yeah, if a PC said, I think this political thing should happen, yeah, they'd be in trouble. But the senior management get away with it for some reason. Yeah, and it's only because the public don't hold them to account. Then there was an Official Secrets Act passed in the same year, and the third was the Firearms Act 1920. So the Firearms Act 1920 has been debated in Parliament, and it's been debated in the Commons. And Mr. Short is the Home Secretary. It's Short with 2 T's if you look him up. Hansard is available online, and again I'll send you a link. Its search engine is a bit clunky, but you can Google it. So you can Google Hansard Full Firearms Act debate, so and so. So Mr. Short is reading out the bit about firearm certificates. Says you can have a firearm, but you've got to have a certificate. And a man called Kenworthy, Lieutenant Commander Kenworthy, in the naval history for the First World War, says to Mr. Short, well, is self-defence going to be a good reason for issuing a firearm certificate? And the Home Secretary said, yes, of course, and then moves on. And that's why firearm certificates were issued for self-defence up until 1969. And that's where the right to bear firearms is still there. Similar thing happened with offensive weapons in 1953. There's a thing called the Prevention of Crime Act 1953, which covers offensive weapons. And again, if you read the debates, you'll find that there's never intention to disarm anybody. An example from memory is that an MP gets up in the Commons and says to the Home Secretary, a lady from the House of Commons canteen was attacked by a footpad, which is the old term for a robber, on Wimbledon Common last year, and she used a hat pin to defend herself. Hat pin's a big spike about 6 inches long. And do you intend to stop ladies carrying hat pins? And the Home Secretary said, of course not. Okay, so most people think you can't have arms to defend yourself, and you can. So what happened with Pepper versus Hart is, Pepper is the taxman, says yes you can tax. Hart is the teacher, no you can't. He goes to the House of Lords, and the House of Lords looks at it, and the House of Lords says, of course, you must read Hansard, because if you don't read Hansard, you haven't got a full picture. Okay, so when you're ever interpreting an Act of Parliament, you must read Hansard. When a decision like that comes out that's important to the way the law is practiced, the Attorney General, we spoke about him already, the Crown's Principal Law Officer, issues a practice direction to the legal profession that you've got to do something. So there's a practice direction from 1993, next year, which says advocates in preparing for a trial, in order to be sure that they're correctly interpreting the Act of Parliament, must read Hansard, must. And if they come up with a passage which is ambiguous or obscure, they can ask the court for permission to refer to Hansard. Okay, and it does happen quite often, and it's affected parliamentary behaviour, I'm sure, because MPs know that they can be held to account if they ask questions or if they don't ask questions. Okay, so we need to know how to interpret this here section 26. So let's go on to the next bit. A police constable guilty of offences live on conviction, indictment on prison term not exceeding 14 years. Quite serious, isn't it? Yeah, it's the highest penalty short of life. Highest fixed penalty.
You know when you said about the genocide of the Europeans?
Yeah.
How are they doing that?
Reducing our population. Our breeding stock is our breeding rate is 1.1, isn't it? 1.3.
How are they doing that then? By intensive treatment?
Red Ice Radio's got lots of good stuff, and for example, the toxins in plastic packaging, for example, that reduce sperm count, that sort of thing. The lady Lana talks about fire retardants in synthetic clothing also has a similar effect, but we don't know about it.
Pill in our water supply as well.
Women's sex toys made out of PVC. You look at that and you'll find there's an issue with that. I won't go into detail. Right. For this purpose of this section, the police council exercise the power that it is improperly if. Yeah. So it's got to be for somebody else from itself. It's got to be to get a benefit. And here's the test. A reasonable person will not expect the power or privilege to be exercised for the purpose of achieving that benefit. So what it does is introduce the reasonable person test. Okay. Now, who knows what reasonable force in self-defence is?
I'll strike you a guess. Just enough to prevent the person from attacking you.
Right answer. That's right. Yeah, sufficient to get the job done. Reasonable force isn't. Can I hurt him? I mean, the work. For a certain point. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'll talk about that as a separate lesson. Okay, because I see this is going to be an interesting topic. So it's quite right. Sufficient force to get the job done. And the issue is, so long as you've got an honestly held belief. So the scenario is, you've got a man with a realistic-looking replica gun, and he points at a policeman who's got a real gun, and gets shot for his trouble. Is it a problem for the policeman?
No, because he believes it's real.
Honestly held belief. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, that's a test. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you a little anecdote. A young PC came up to me, one of these ones that's woken up, and he sent on his first police shooting course, pistol shooting course, and they talk about scenarios. So here's a scenario. There's a woman on the ground, she's being raped. There's a man on top. She's got a carving knife, she's about to plunge it into his back. Picture the scene. They're surrounded by a chain link fence. Can't get over it. The only tool you've got is your pistol. What do you do? Okay? The common law answer is, rape is a forcible atrocious crime, and you can kill somebody in the act of committing a forcible atrocious crime. And I'll prove that in my next lesson. Okay, you can kill somebody in the act of committing a forcible crime. So she's entitled to stab him in the back. The Human Rights Act answer is, death is less serious than rape. Okay, so you shoot the woman. Okay, and the answer my colleague came up with is, you shoot the man and claim you missed the woman. There we go. He's quite switched on. Right, okay, so it's the reasonable person test. And what that's referring to is it's known as the Clapham omnibus test. So the average man on the Clapham omnibus, if he thought it was reasonable, that's reasonable, and that's what I'm referring to. So I won't go into any more detail, but again I'll put it on there. There's an impact assessment done for most acts of Parliament. So I've got the impact assessment for this section 23. And what it's about is, there's been a number of judgments where policemen have been accused of misconduct in office. Okay, now how you can find out the ingredients of an offence are, you go to the Crown Prosecution Service website. Public document, used to be a big secret, Crown Prosecution Service website, and you search Crown Prosecution Service Manual, misconduct in public office. And one of the criteria for a charge of misconduct in public office is outraging public morals. So you have to have a witness that says, I was outraged, okay, by this. And apparently the Home Office say that a number of cases where policemen should have been charged with misconduct in office and it didn't succeed. So we've reduced the standard to the reasonable person test. Okay, but this is in our favour, isn't it? Because we're all reasonable people. Okay. So let's go back to the first slide. Police constable, a member of police force, that's the definition. And it apparently includes chief constables. Exercise the powers to privilege of constable properly. Chief constables issue firearm certificates, don't they? Except they don't if you ask for self-defence, do they? Yeah? Nose to water, you write to him and put him straight. Okay?
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Well, that's what it needs. Because if you've got a shotgun certificate like me, and I write to the Chief Constable and say, I'm thinking of shooting a burglar, what will he do? Revoke my shotgun certificate. I won't be able to shoot a burglar. He's done it time and time again, but it needs somebody who hasn't got a certificate to take the initiative. Why shouldn't you have a pepper spray to defend yourself? Like a French school child, for example. I say that. French school children come over to the UK. Tina told me a story. School exchange visit, coach comes over with their French children, and the teacher knew about it, didn't they?
Yeah. The coach pulled up, and they're all full of French children. The teacher's standing there with a carry bag, and they're all putting
CS sprays.
CS sprays in the bag. And I said, "What's that?" She said, "The CS spray." I said, "Leave it on the side," you know. And as soon as they'd finished at my school, they got back on the coach, and they were all given back.
Because no French mum would send a child out undefended. Our daughter walked through central London, skimpily dressed, you know, surrounded by goodness knows what. I'd be terrified to do it, you know.
I devised an anti-rape device, by the way, because
Yeah.
I'm an inventor, and
Yeah,
it's
okay.
like a silicone that you wear in, and it's got an on its end blades that are set in
All right.
a little bit in the middle. Anything that hits it, the blades come straight out.
Sounds good to me, yeah. Yeah,
Well done.
yeah, that's right. Okay, so I put an idea in your mind. If you claim the right to bear arms, we're looking for a supporter. One of the two people that were arrested at Birkenhead, you know Birkenhead and the rest of the judge? What's not known is Rusty, good man, ex-army, ex-PTI. 3 weeks previously, he got himself arrested in possession of a baton and a CS spray. Apparently, it was at Oldham, I think it was, Tina. Late night Oldham, there's a PCC in the park police car writing reports or something on the laptop. Rusty wants to get himself arrested, so ostentatiously lights a spliff. and the PC ignored him, so he had to blow the smoke through the window just to make the point. And the PC said, "Oh, I'm going to arrest you now," because it's been liberalised recently, hasn't it? But it's pre-liberalisation. Routinely with the prisoner, you ask them, "Have you got anything that could cause harm?" Because they say no, and you say, "I don't trust you, I'm going to search you." You wouldn't have somebody in the back of your police car unless they were cuffed and searched as well, because cuffs can come off. So Rusty says yes, and the PC what rummages his bag, finds a baton, arrested in possession of a baton, offensive weapon, finds a CS spray. It's technically a firearm, it's a prohibited weapon under the Firearms Act. Arrested him for that, takes him to the charge room, and then he's interviewed. That was a deaf and dumb arrest, because there are defences for having a baton, and there are defences. You might have a certificate, one of these permits I've talked about, but Rusty didn't. It was a deaf and dumb arrest. But the detective that interviews him, you can picture Rusty, sort of rough diamond sort of chap, and he says to Rusty, "Well, what justification have you got for having these weapons?" And you can hear Rusty leaning forward, and he said, "I've got just as much right as you have," which is true, okay? Because the only people that exercise their right to bear arms are policemen and soldiers. Okay, and a policeman doesn't need a firearms certificate because Section 4 of the 68 says that he doesn't need to have one. He has a little pink card that he produces to when he draws the gun from the station armoury, and the baton he gets issued with it on day one at training school and gives it back when he retires. Yeah, so the only people that exercise their right to bear arms are constables, and you didn't know that. Okay, right. Okay, this is 30 years' experience. I've done martial arts since the age of 7. Okay, because my dad was a policeman, and one of his mates was a black belt judo, and he formed a club, and I was volunteered along with my brother to get hard time. A bit character building, obviously. And I was county champion for many years, up until age 16, and I was in the quarter-finals of the Nationals. And I kept getting flattened because I was just into the unlimited weight category, and I was fighting some real monsters. There we go. And I joined the police and always had an interest in self-defence. Okay, so this is 30 years' experience. And I've debriefed hundreds of people who have been victims of violent crime. Okay. So this is what you need to know about self-defence is. We're all descended from a long line of cavemen, aren't we? And our ancestors didn't get eaten by the saber-toothed mammoth, did they? Okay, they survived. Okay, so what mechanism have we got to help us survive in a crisis?
Run.
Yeah, okay, yeah, run, yeah. It's called the fight or flight reflex. Okay, so it works like this. Some British scientists did some research about 30 years ago, and they frightened some students. Good job too, shake them up. And what they did is put them in chairs, strapped electrodes to them to detect nerve activity and blood flow, and then showed them violent videos, basically with surprises. Okay, and they found that hostile human faces and hostile human voices kick off the adrenaline response, fight or flight. Okay? And it goes like this: the information comes in through the eyes and ears. it goes to the amygdala of the brainstem, and it goes down to the adrenal glands, which are above the kidneys, and they contract and they release two hormones into the bloodstream. One is an anaesthetic. So that you don't stop fighting because it hurts when you carry on fighting. And people have been known to be stabbed and not noticed it until afterwards. And one of the drill, when a policeman's had a fight with somebody, you check each other over for injuries. Part of training, okay? So one hormone is an anaesthetic, and the other is a hormone which burns off blood sugar in the muscles more rapidly. So if you're burning off blood sugar in the muscles more rapidly, it accounts for feats of strength, doesn't it? So if I ask you how fast can you run, you ask me, depends what's chasing me, don't you? Okay? So people have been chased by a bull and jumped over a huge hedge and what have you. Okay? Now the good news is you're 2 or 3 times as strong as you were, 'cause it's chemistry, not magic. So it wears off, and you've only got 20 or 30 seconds on average. Okay, so if I was doing a self-defence course, I'd have you sparring and a person with a timer, and you'd notice that people slow down. Boxers, they're amazing because they go on for 3 minutes and then another 3 minutes, lots of training. But in reality...
Apparently the berserkers in
Viking
time...
Yeah, you look like you're standing from if I may say so. Yeah. Then you've got the hair. That's his actual colour. I think I am as well.
Speaks a lot of Old Norse.
Does it? Oh, okay, yeah, there we are.
Well, the berserkers in Viking times, they were renowned for dropping dead at the end of battles with injuries which
they hadn't noticed. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So what you've got these hormones released. The first site it reaches is the stomach, so your stomach turns over. So that's why people can be sick when they have a sudden shock. Okay, so there's no dishonour. You can be shocked, sick. The next is the rectum, so you can poo your pants, and it's one reason why Scotsmen wear quilts apparently in battle, and some nationalists are stripped off. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Right. The next site it reaches is the heart, so the heart starts pumping. And that's good because it's pumping oxygenated blood round. So most of the martial arts say if you can get 2 good deep breaths in, something like your chi, and that's good news. The bad news is your muscles start trembling. You can't operate machinery, and that includes your fingers. Okay. If you ever look at an army radio, for example, an army radio, because the army's known about this for years, is a big green box with big knobs that are difficult to turn. Isn't that right? Yeah, army equipment's chunky, isn't it? Yeah, because oh bugger, the Russians are coming. I better call headquarters. They've known about it for years. It's called operational research. Yeah, the first I had a ride in an army helicopter once as a little cadet at 14, and it was the one with a bubble canopy and the skids on either side with ambulance pods. And you open the lid to the ambulance pod and it's got a big sign in red and it says, "You are in a helicopter stretcher pod." And that's how practical the army is, isn't it? Because you wounded, you wake up on the battlefield. Where the hell am I? There we go. So the heart starts pumping, and you've only got 20 seconds. You lose 5-finger control. So fine-fingered self-defense techniques. I'll poke him in the eye. It's not going to work, is it? Okay. The next site it reaches is the ears. Okay. So you remember from school biology, you've got little bones in the ears, a staypiece that connect the eardrum to the cochlea, and physically transmit vibration into the cochlea where it's turned into nerve signals. They lock up, and that's why you can hear yourself breathing. Now, film producers know this, so Darth Vader in Star Wars is scary, isn't he? That's right, yeah, okay, you can hear that, yeah, okay. You lose up to 80% of your hearing, okay? And the last site it reaches is the eyes, okay? So the pupils contract, you get tunnel vision, target fixation. The only thing you can see is the thing you want to shoot, okay? Okay, so you get target fixation. Again, it's reckoned to be about 20%. So people in danger have got the advantage of the extra strength, but they've got target fixation. An example I give is I was once on a robbery squad, and the man was robbed by a robber with a hammer. It was a used hammer, and it had paint on the handle, and he was able to describe the shape of the paint on the handle, but he couldn't describe the face. And I subsequently found the hammer in the toolkit in the suspect's house. That sort of thing. So if you're going to defend yourself, you can't say, if you carry on and defend yourself in a minute, okay, because you haven't got a minute, you've got 20 seconds. Okay. Now, remember I said that the law on self-defense is common law, and the common law comes from our ancestors, isn't it? So all our ancestors have had these experiences, their life experiences. We all had a fright. Yeah, we know what it's like to be scared. We know the stomach goes over. After the adrenaline's run down, you're a wet dish rash, trembling, aren't you? Yeah. So you haven't got long. Okay. So our ancestors formulated the common law rule is that you can use force against a person who's in the act of committing a forcible and atrocious crime, rape, burglary, assault, murder. Okay, those are the rules, and it's not whether it's reasonable. If you've got an honestly held belief they're in the act, man with realistic toy gun gets shot by a real gun. Yeah, that's the rule. Okay, Now, the other thing to talk about is a crime is two things. A crime is a physical act, it's a mental intent, isn't it? So theft is dishonestly taking property, appropriating property belonging to another with intent to deprive it. So a little old lady with a loaf of bread in hand, a bit confused, wanders out of the supermarket. She's walked off with the bread, but she hasn't got the crime, has she? Okay, and it's the same for you when you defend yourself. Okay, and we can prove that. You know the Harry Stanley case. The Harry Stanley case is a man goes into a pub with a chair leg in a bin bag and tells people in the pub it's a sawn-off shotgun. Somebody calls the police, an armed response responds, an inspector and a PC, and they go in, and basically Harry Stanley turns around and he gets shot. Okay, do you remember that one? Yeah? It was controversial. It's controversial. The policeman, the PC and the inspector were suspended from duty for 5 years while the CPS worked it out. And in the end, the Federation went over to America and they got a psychologist that had been employed by the Patrolmen's Benefit, the equivalent of the Federation, the Patrolmen's Beneficial Association of New York. And this psychologist had done some research, and basically videotapes have been invented in shops. So we've all seen loads of crime scenes on television, haven't we? But they're not real unless they're videos of real incidents. So this professor had the opportunity to make an examination of large numbers of videotapes, and he was able to demonstrate that the time between a person perceiving something and the time him reacting it can be measured. It can be measured. It's between half a second and 1.5 seconds. Okay, so let's imagine you're confronted with danger, and you spontaneously, within a half second, 1.5 seconds, lash out and defend yourself. Remember I said talking about the brain signal? I've talked about the brain signal going in there, down to the adrenal glands, but it doesn't just go there, it goes to the rational front part of the brain. That's where the delay is, because the pathways are so complicated. Okay, so if you suddenly defend yourself against an honestly held belief that you're in danger, you cannot commit a crime because your brain can't keep up. And our ancestors knew that, and that's when they formulated the common law rule. And fair play to them, yeah. And that's what we should stand to. So reasonableness doesn't come into it; it's what you perceive, what you honestly held belief. And if you argue self-defence as a legal defence, it reverses the burden of proof, and the Crown can only convict you. We were talking about this earlier, weren't we? The Crown can only convict you if they can prove you didn't have an honestly held belief. And how can they prove what you were thinking? At the end of the day, you get accused of using excessive force when you defend yourself. Who do you have to convince?
The jury.
The jury. Yeah, jury of your peers. So, okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions now because this is serious business. Okay. You perceive danger. Okay. The signal goes to the back of the brain. Where does it go next? Adrenal glands. Yeah. Read it back to me. Because you're a class. Read it back to me. Okay.
And the forebrain.
Okay. And 2 hormones are released. What's the first one? Yeah. Okay. What's the second one?
Adrenaline.
Yeah. And how long does the adrenaline charge work? 20, 30 seconds. Yeah. Where does it arrive first? Stomach, bottom, heart, ears, eyes. Okay, and the signal also goes to somewhere else. It goes upwards, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And there's a delay. Okay, so if you spontaneously defend yourself, you cannot commit a crime because you can't form any malicious intent. So really, that's self-defence. And if you want to know what policemen do when they're confronted with danger, they go like that. Okay. And the reason is, if I got a big firework, like a thunder flash, you know what a thunder flash is, and threw it in the room, it'd go bang, and I reckon probably 3/4 of people go, ooh, like that, wouldn't they? So the Home Office system of self-defence acknowledges that's the best way. And how do you hit somebody?
Same stance.
Same stance, yeah, and what do you hit them with? Okay, if I wanted to punch that wall, how hard could I punch it?
Yeah.
Not very. Palm heel strike.
Yeah.
Okay, palm heel strike. I've only ever punched a person full strength once, and we both went to hospital. Him with a dislocated jaw, and me with a broken knuckle bone. He was strangling a policeman in the back of the van. And I drove back to the police station on night duty, and it all went quiet. I opened the door, and there was instead of the PT on top of the prisoner was on top of the PC. There you go. It's legit, obviously. Okay, any questions? So you know about self-defence. You knew it already, didn't you? You knew it already, but you've had it codified, shall we say. And if any of you want to have to defend yourself, I can now go to court, and I'm on video teaching you the lesson. Okay, so I can assist you in your defence. I've done it a number of times with my colleagues.
I was always taught with the
Yeah.
open palm.
Yeah, that's right,
You
yeah.
can slap, kick,
Yeah,
up to
okay.
the knee.
Okay, what's the best target? Because men have got a handy off switch.
Oh.
Men have got a handy off switch. I know what you're thinking. It's the nose, okay? Because a man will defend his goodies, obviously. Okay, because where's the centre of man's universe, you know? Where his hands go. So it's the nose. If your palm move strikes the nose, no matter how big and tough they are, how many tattoos, they're out of it. Okay? And all they're interested in is saying, where's the nearest hospital in Boston?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, right. Right, keep getting digressed. Okay, what do you want to talk about next? How much more longer have we got?
Interest.
Yeah. Interest, okay, right. It's called, there's two concepts, capitalisation and securitisation. Now, I didn't know much about this. I paid my mortgage like a good one, and then my wife screwed me when I got divorced, but there we are.
Not me.
Perhaps a lot of policemen.
No.
There we go. Okay, so 2 months ago, Tina and I were dispatched to Northern Ireland to meet a man called Anthony Carlin. He's a Northern Ireland PC in Northern Ireland Police Service, still serving, although off long-term sick with a bad back. He got an injury in a traffic accident. And the reason we went to Northern Ireland was there have been two cases before the Northern Ireland courts, which are really important to hear. McCready and Ray, it's 2013. McCready and Ray have both got mortgages. They've got them with their housing trusts. They get in financial difficulties, and they find that the building society has increased the amount they have to pay until they can't afford it, basically. So the housing trust does the decent thing, and it pays for lawyers, pays for barristers, goes to the county court to challenge this when the repossession comes in because they haven't paid. So the judgment in McCready and Ray, which I'll put on the email that comes around, says this. Your contract, your loan agreement is a contract, so when you take out a mortgage, and it says you'll borrow a certain sum of money, and you'll agree to give power of attorney to the other side to levy charges, like solicitors' fees. For example, when the Bank of England change a rate, they charge 150 quid because the solicitor's got to sign it off, nonsense. And if they want to turn nasty, they keep finding excuses for levying fees because they've got power of attorney and they can get away with it. Now, customer practice in the legal industry for the last since 1985 apparently is you've got the lump sum that you pay back, and they bullshit you. You say, I tell you what you're having trouble paying this £150. Tell you what, we'll add it to the principal, and you suddenly find you're paying interest on £150 solicitor's fee for the next 23 years. Okay, that's known as capitalisation. The McCready and Ray judgment says that's unconscionable and it's unlawful, contrary to various Northern Ireland Acts of Parliament. Northern Ireland court decisions are persuasive but not binding on the mainland. So what we're seeking to do is to bring them back here. Anthony Carlin went a stage further. So Anthony Carlin, same thing happened. He's a PC in Northern Ireland. He takes out a £200,000 mortgage. The repayments are £290, and then suddenly it goes up. And eventually, over the course of a year, it goes up from 290 to 100 to £1,090. Yeah, so he carries on paying, but he's on a fixed income. They're on straight 8s, no overtime, Northern Ireland, he can't cope. Now, because he's off sick, he's able to do some research, and this is where the internet scores. Okay, so he researched the Santander bank in all its aspects. So you've got the front-facing, public-facing bit. It's a bank. They call themselves a bank, haven't you? But they've also got a bit you can't see unless you look, which is about investments. So if you look from the investment side, you find that they've got this scheme where you can give them money and they will give you an enhanced rate of interest more than any other concept. And it's called an SPV. You've heard of SPV, Special Purpose Vehicle? Okay. A Special Purpose Vehicle is a company created out of thin air, usually only got one managing director, usually got one address, and it only exists to store money in, essentially. So Anthony realises something's not right, so he fires off multiple Freedom of Information Act requests. And the little known thing about the Freedom of Information Act is that if there's legal proceedings, either actually start at the court or being contemplated, in other words, they're coming up, then the Freedom of Information Act no longer applies and they can't hide stuff. So if you were to look at Section 35 of the Freedom of Information Act 1998, it says that. It says if you're seeking to protect your rights or to make a claim, they can't hide stuff. So Anthony makes multiple claims, and you can imagine the office junior gets his file out and foolishly sends too much. Well, does the right thing, but says too much. So when the repossession comes in, Anthony first says, you didn't lend me anything, you sold it, you securitised it. Okay, you sold it to an SPV. The way the system worked prior to McCready and Ray was, if a building society wanted to defend a case in court, they'd get a tame solicitor and he'd write a statement. It would be hearsay. Hearsay is evidence you haven't seen yourself, but you've heard. and it's not acceptable in the criminal courts, and it's no longer acceptable in the civil courts in these sort of cases. So the the first statement Anthony gets in exchange, because a legal case is like a game of tennis. You knock something over the net, and if they can knock it back, then you have to knock it back, and so on. And eventually, they can't knock it back. So the first statement issued by a solicitor employed by Santander was, no, of course we haven't securitised this. We did lend you loads of money that we got from our depositors. Okay, and he also said, we Santander are in fact the ones that own your mortgage still. We're going to claim it from you. Now, in 2008, there was a financial crisis, as you know. There's a standing committee of the House of Parliament called the Treasury Select Committee. The Bank of England lowered the interest rate, and MPs then got complaints that individual people's mortgages weren't getting any discount, that it wasn't being reduced. So there's a bit of a hoo-ha, and the Treasury Select Committee was given the job of investigating what had gone wrong, sort of thing. Now, by coincidence, there's a woman called Carmen Butler, who's a high-powered lawyer, who worked for a firm that was doing securitisation. I'll talk about in a minute. She decided she worked for a year and then got an attack of the conscience and stopped doing it. By coincidence, this committee then was asking for evidence, and because Parliament is the High Court of Parliament, anything you submit has got the status of a witness statement, because you can be held accountable for perjury if you've lied. So Carmel Butler writes a document, and the document says, I'm just going to spill the beans about what really happens when you take out a mortgage. Okay? So in his case, it's Santander. He buys the mortgage from Santander. 3 months later, they sell it to one of these SPVs. And the common law rule is when you sell something, when the debt is paid, it's gone. And Carmel Butler says this is what happens. And the Anthony, in this case, has got no contract with the SPV that the mortgage has been sold to. So they can't claim money from him. But what the SPV do is they do two things that are unlawful and fraud. The first thing is the Land Registry Act 1925 says that when you buy property, you're supposed to register it in 6 months, and they don't. And the second thing is that they have a contract with the building site of Santander, or the Bank Santander, to not tell the punter what's gone on, and Santander continues to send out demands. And eventually, if it comes to a repossession, it's Santander that makes the repossession. And of course, that's fraud, because Santander hasn't got a contract with you; it's been sold to the other party. So Carmel Butler writes a statement, writes a report to the Treasury Select Committee.
I believe that the bank still has an interest in the property regarding the deed release fee, and I believe that's the only claim they have.
I hear what you say, but I'm just going to tell you about something you may not know of. There's a man called Mike Grant Sinclair, lorry driver, very switched on. He's like the people in this room, you know, not high-powered jobs, but switched on. Okay, so takes out a mortgage in 2007, has an industrial accident 3 years later, gets squashed by his trailer, and he's off sick for 18 months. And so he's got time to study, and he eventually gets foreclosed on. So Advantage Mortgages in Luton selling the mortgage. This is Mr. Brown in charge of Advantage Mortgages. What Mike Grant Sinclair's done, he's gone to the Land Registry and identified a unique serial number for his mortgages, MC, and then number of digits. Okay, and that's recorded at the Land Registry as the current owner of the mortgage. And then he's gone to Companies House, and Companies House is the government department that keeps track of the accounts of companies. And he's able to go to Accord Mortgages, and he discovers his mortgage was sold by Mr. Brown of Accord Mortgages to an SPV called Brass One. And when you read the document, to answer your question, when you get a printout, you can order it for I think it's 50p online. When you get a printout of the document where the mortgage was sold, it says with full title. Yeah. So I hear what you say, but the document actually produced when the transaction does says full title. So there we go. Then as I say, has an industrial injury, gets foreclosed on. And the same Mr. Brown from Accord, not saying he sold it, is the one that goes into the county court and says we're going to want to foreclose on this bloke. Now it's contempt of court to tell lies basically when you're starting a case, and county courts can send people to prison for contempt of court. Criminal courts do if they're convicted of crimes, but county courts can send people to prison. So Anthony's basically asked for the managing director of Santander, the barristers that are involved in this lying. Because when Anthony was doing research, remember I said the barrister said, oh no, we don't securitise. Well, Anthony's gone online and found the securitisation department. He's got the name of the principal lawyer. So she's been called to court. I've written articles about it in the UK column, and you can look them up. So where Anthony is now is that adding fees to principal is out of order. That's called securitisation. We're seeking to bring that across the water. And this business about selling the mortgage securitisation. Now the issue with securitisation is this. You remember we talked about legislation.gov.uk? It's got stuff going way back, okay? Well, 1677, if you were to look up the Statute of Fraud 1677, which is a statute in force, the context is 1677, it's 11 years after the Great Fire of London. There's lots of legal disputes over who owns what, because people have their houses burned down and lost all their papers, whatever. So Parliament passed an act that says any court proceedings relating to the title of the property can only go ahead if they're supported by a signed document, a document signed by the party. Okay, so when a building society securitises mortgages, they hand over the loan agreement, and they usually say it's lost, don't they? We can't find it anymore. That's what happened to Tom Crawford. You know Tom Crawford's case? Yeah, we've lost it. Yeah, and what that means is the statute of fraud means that my interpretation is, I'm not a lawyer, but my interpretation is that any proceedings where they can't produce the original loan agreement can't go ahead because of the statute of frauds. If it's gone ahead, it's void, because we talked about earlier. Statute of fraud is an act of Parliament, a statute that's in force. If it's not complied with, then the whole thing's void. So does that answer the question? Okay. Now I'm contracted to write articles for the contracted. I've promised Brian I'll write articles for the BCG about this, but because the matter isn't finished, Tina and I are going to London next week to progress it a bit further. That's where we stand at the moment. So we've got judgments in Northern Ireland, one definite judgment, one part heard, because the judge has gone away to consider Anthony's case, and taken together, we need to get them across the water to here. And it's the next big scandal after PPI or what have you. It's bigger than PPI, because we've been lied to. It happened in 1985, apparently. Mrs Thatcher was prevailed upon to sort of deregulate the city. What I've described about this business about selling to SPVs and not telling anybody, it's covered by the concept of accepted accounting practice. You remember we talked about Talmuds, the Talmud logic. That's where it comes. Load of Jewish judges, load of Jewish lawyers, load of Jewish financiers. Is it all right we do this, chaps? Yeah, fine. Off you go. And they've been caught out. Isn't that right, Rob? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there we go. You're quite pleased, aren't you? Yeah. Rob found loads of stuff. That's my contribution to it. There's lots of smiling faces because it will cover credit cards, any sort of loan that's been securitised, any big, reasonably big loan. So we'll have our money back, please. I'll just talk about how you get your money back. There's an Act of Parliament called the Frustrated Contracts Act 1943. So it's 1943. What's happened? Well, World War II, obviously. The example is that there's the British chaps have got contracts about the Malaya rubber plantations, for example, and the Malayan rubber plantation has been occupied by the Japanese army with buck teeth and bayonets. So the contracts can't go ahead. So a lot of people have got problems. So Parliament passes an act. It's the Frustrated Contracts Act 1943. And what it says is, in the event a contract is frustrated and can't be completed, the parties will be put back in the position where they were when they started, less reasonable adjustments. Okay, so for example, in Tom's case, he's been cheated by the Bradford and Bingley, so he should keep his house because he paid for his house with his promissory note. That's where he was when the contract started. The contract can't be completed because Bradford and Bingley have lost his paperwork, contrary to the Statute of Fraud 1677. And the Frustrated Contracts Act 1943 says put him back where he was, so give him all his payments back, less reasonable expenses. So Tom should keep his house, and plus, I think it was a £40,000 mortgage, and he paid 130 over the 25 years. Well, Mike Grant Sinclair's got something interesting. He's spoken about this publicly about the tape recording, isn't he, Tina? Okay. Yeah.
As an ex-policeman, do you ever get done for speeding?
I did, yes, yeah. Tina, take my. No, she didn't.
No, it's on record.
I don't recruit myself. Most of my service was in uniform, and in the uniform you're on the goody two-shoes at 29.5 miles an hour because everybody's watching, and it's only when you get the blue light you can go for it. I've driven a wide range of police vehicles. The most fun is the unmarked police car. In the Met it's called the Q car, so it's an unmarked car with blue lights in the grille and a Kojak light on top, and that's great fun. It's called the Q car from the First World War, actually. When Morse code was invented, it was used by the Navy, the first early adopter of the Navy, and they came up with 3-letter codes to shorten the messages. Okay, so in the First World War they had a thing called a Q ship, which was a merchant ship with a gun on it, hidden by canvas screens. Okay, so the German U-boat would pop up, and it'd be cheaper to shoot a ship with shells than use torpedoes, and that gave the opportunity for the Q ship to load the canvas and then shoot back. And that was called a Q ship, crew for query. So come the air break piece in 1918, the Met Police recruited a load of Navy signallers, and that's where the code comes from. So an unmarked police car is known as a Q car. Yeah, and you can tell because they don't have hubcaps on in the Met.
Yeah,
You know why?
how did you deal with your speeding?
I'll tell you later. There we go.
John,
Yeah.
if you go online to the Greater Manchester
Yeah.
Police website, look at the finance report, which is what we should be doing. First paragraph says that they became a corporation, so the chief constable himself, there
Yeah.
is no Greater Manchester Police
Yeah.
Organisation, became a corporation so in August 2013. Now I've been trying desperately to get him to explain why, what was the reason behind it, how does that affect us, and it's just shut us down blankly, we don't answer questions.
Okay, my understanding of the law relating to policing is this. We've all got a common law obligation to maintain the Queen's peace. And we've talked about Alfred, haven't we, in 843, something like that. And everyone has an obligation to maintain the Queen's peace, and it goes like this. You imagine a medieval village, and somebody steals a pig and runs off with it under his arm. The owner of the pig is expected to do something about it, and he's entitled to put a hue and cry, hue and cry, by voice and horn, and every able-bodied male in the area is expected to join in. And for that reason, every able-bodied male is expected to have the personal weapons of the soldier. Helmet, body armour, sword, spear, dagger, okay? And that was enforced until 1967. Again, you didn't know about that. Every male was expected to possess harness for war, and that's in the Sheriff's Act 1887, strangely enough. So the hue and cry was expected to chase the thief to the edge of the parish, because the smallest unit of administration was the parish. And if it went beyond the parish, then the next parish joins in. And if it went beyond the county, then the sheriff would get the job. And the sheriff was entitled to call up the posse. So, you know American films, posse? Yeah? It's short for posse comitatus, which is power of the county in Latin. Still in force, section 88 of the Sheriff's Act 1887 says the sheriff, if he's having trouble executing a writ, in other words, he's being resisted, is required to call up the power of the county, the posse comitatus, and go in proper person, in other words, lead them and go and sort the matter out. And you might think it never happens, but 20 years ago I was full-time public order, the thug bus, and the M13 motorway is being built, and there's a row of houses that need to be demolished. It's the last row. And you remember Swampy the tree hugger? He was a nice bloke. I met him. Yeah, he was good, wasn't he? Yeah. He and his mates have barricaded themselves in the row of houses. So we get sent one morning. We expect we're going to have to evict them. And no, the Sheriff of Essex, because the part of the Met is still in Essex, had recruited nightclub bouncers, and you could tell because in those days they wore Crombie coats, didn't they? Yeah. So there's nightclub bouncers in their Crombie coats looking out of place with muddy shoes, and they don't like it. And an orange waistcoat that said Sheriff's Department, and the sheriff had employed them for the day, and they dealt with it until somebody started chucking slates off, and we had to get them down. We didn't arrest them, let them go afterwards. There we go. So it's still in force. Yeah. So that's the common law obligation to maintain the peace, and everyone's got it. Okay. So we're all sitting here fuming, saying, "What can we do about these criminals in uniforms and what have you?" Well, you should be doing something. Okay. There's another concept. Yeah, section 26. I'll repeat the question for the benefit of the tape. The question is, bailiffs turn up and unlawful warrants are being proffered, and what are the police doing about it? Well, we've talked about section 26, haven't we? Okay. Now, again, you have to trust me on this one. If you look at paragraph 23 of Schedule 12 to the Courts and Tribunals Act 2007, you will see that it says an enforcement agent, because bailiffs are now known as enforcement agents. I'll put it in the video, in the tape. Enforcement agents are required to, when challenged by the householder, to produce their ID and a justification for their actions. Okay, and they don't do it. And there's a good video of Tom Crawford. That happened to him. There's a video. His wife gets chucked out by police, so they're clearly assisting the bailiffs. He's standing outside, and a weedy-looking man wearing a yellow waistcoat, these now yellow waistcoats, with HMCTS on the back, court service, comes up, and Tom says, "Who are you?" And he won't tell him, and said, "Where's the warrant?" And the man turns around and leaves. And standing next to him is a police inspector, and of course it's completely overstated because this police inspector doesn't know about the 2007, where he should. And he's got deep issues, because that's going to be the whole basis of what Tom's defence, because the whole thing was unlawful. So no warrant was produced, and that's it. And if Tom's got an honestly held belief that the police and the bailiffs are acting unlawfully, even if he's wrong, it's like the shoot with toy gun thing. Even if he's wrong, if he's got an honestly held belief, he shouldn't be prosecuted. Yeah.
Quite the opposite, surely.
Yeah, other way around. Yeah, yeah,
Shouldn't these bailiffs be...
yeah. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
The police obviously are not legally qualified to make determinations on any paperwork. Quite often people are asked to do it, or catching the police actually making a determination of paperwork. They should hold the feet to firearm jurisdiction out and
Yes,
outside the bounds of the jurisdiction, which is a criminal offence. Is an inspector legally qualified?
No,
Any
no. The
particular
police ranks are purely administrative. Everyone's a constable, so
Okay.
so there we are.
That's just a point I wanted to
Yeah,
make.
yeah.
Was something being said where police are being told not to question the paperwork,
Yeah.
and in fact the police haven't got the powers to question that paperwork anyway?
Well,
They're not legally qualified.
there's two contradicting issues. One, county courts are covered by the County Courts Act 1984, and there's a bit that says it's an offence to proffer a false document, section 135 I think it is. So it is an offence. But if you said to the average policeman County Courts Act, they'd say, oh, it's immediately civil, and they wouldn't.
Yeah, but even so, the police is still not able to make a determination on the quality of that paperwork, be it fraudulent or not, because they're not legally qualified to do so.
Yeah,
And that's
I agree.
something
Yeah.
that automatically should stop them from anybody acting on it, especially if you're in possession, which is 9/10. So
Yeah,
they
that's
should
right,
actually side with the possessor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you have to bear in mind the policeman's not legally qualified. But bear in mind they've lowered the IQ. I didn't talk about IQ today. No greater than average IQ. There we go. Except for the graduate entry scheme, so-called, so they can recruit high-functioning psychopaths, sociopaths. And the average IQ is dropping. In London, it's down to 92 apparently. There we go.
79 in America.
Yeah. We were listening to Red Ice Radio on the way here. Syria is 80. Syria is apparently it's unusually low IQ. So Syrian refugees average IQ of 18.
70 across
John, are you going to cover the section 151?
Oh, okay.
Have you got
Pause.
that?
Okay. So you
Do
can.
you want to take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, 5-minute break. Yes, yeah. You know me now. I'm not a smart ass. I've got a good memory. Okay. There we are. But I do talk too fast. And I do go on too long. So I've been asked for 3 things, and I'll give them 5 minutes each. Section 151. Whatever happened to grand juries, and the rhetoric case. I'll explain what the rhetoric case is about, and that's where I'm going to ask you to help me. So section 151. There's a worldwide conspiracy, and it's a fascist conspiracy, because the definition of fascist is where big business and government get together to suit themselves, not the rest of us, to extract money that's taken in the form of taxes and put it into investments. Okay, and various American chaps have discovered this going on. They've spread the word. So BCG website, a couple of articles about it. And how is it done? Well, it's done by useful idiots. Now, useful idiot is a term that goes back to the Russian Empire. And one of Stalin or one of Trotsky or something like that. There were people in the West that supported the Russian Empire, and they refer to as useful idiots because Trotsky knew that if ever the communists took over the West, these people would be killed because they're the sort of people that we're like. They're activists, completely misguided useful idiots. The useful idiots in relation to this fascist scheme to fund very obscure investments is the Section 151 officer. So I'll just quickly tell you who that is. There's an Act of Parliament in 1974, Section 174, which is a local government act, and it says each council will have a senior financial official, and its qualifications. You've got to do a course set up by the Institute of Accountants, especially for that purpose. Okay, I haven't been able to get the syllabus for that course. They won't tell me. Okay, because it's commercially sensitive apparently. So what you've got a job specified by an Act of Parliament with qualifications specified by a body that's not accountable. These Section 151 officers are supposed to have a certain amount of protection. They can only be sacked by a vote from the whole council, and they're expected to be financially independent. They're independent arbiters of the probity of what a council does, and it's called a fiduciary responsibility. Now, fiduciary is a technical term, and it means of the greatest trust. So if you have a fiduciary responsibility, you're expected to be trustworthy. And the Section 151 officer is a descendant of what was formerly known as the Borough Treasurer. Now, as it happens, there's a judgment in the House of Lords that says Borough Treasurers have got a fiduciary duty to the council and also to the taxpayers, to the ratepayers. So that's handy, that's in our favour. The Section 151 officer, whose job is set by Act of Parliament, has got another function which is set by later Act of Parliament, which says that they've got a duty to investigate any potential claims against the council or any misconduct or any criminal activity. Okay, so they've got powers to investigate. and it actually says by members of the council, employees of the council, or by members of police forces funded by the council. Now, I'd never heard of that as a policeman, by members of police forces. Never heard of it. What we're seeking to do is to check the accounts for council. So I'll tell you what happens in Parish, which is the county where I live. The council sets the budget, and the budget each year in the recent years, there's austerity. We've got to cut it by 27 million. We're shutting schools. We're closing toilets. You know, we're doing all sorts of things. But it can't be helped because we haven't got the money in the budget. What they don't tell you is the council has got 302 million in reserve. Okay, 302 million, and that's these overseas investments. And the first inkling we the public had of it was, you remember the Iceland banking scandal? Yeah. Yeah. Why has your local authority got money in Iceland? Well, that's the reason. It's not just Iceland; it's other places as well. So I've written articles on it on the BCG website. And the state of play we are is I'm challenging council taxes, as most of us are here, and I'm saying because Paris Council has got huge amounts of money in reserve, you shouldn't be claiming council tax at all. You haven't got justification. And I want the Section 151 officers to come to court when they take me to court, and they're not responding. They don't answer letters, the usual thing. But again, it's going to be an argument. If they do take me to court, I will say we've got the Section 151 officer. He's supposed to be financially accountable for what the council's done. Why has he got this money in reserves? Now, the definition of unusable reserves is the key, isn't it? So, what's an unusable reserve? Well, I've looked at a number of local authorities' accounts. Paris doesn't say what unusable reserve means. A neighbouring county in South Wales, Rhondda Synon Taffy, it's known as, it's where Taffy comes from, says that unusual reserves are set by regulation. Now, unfortunately, this scheme was called to account by the Court of Queen's Bench sitting at Cardiff about 2 years ago. So what happened was two Welsh ladies, Angarad is a nice Welsh name, and two Welsh ladies have got children that reach the age of 3, and there's an act of parliament that says 3-year-olds will be given at least 10 hours a week nursery places. Rhondda Council had decided that because of the austerity they were going to cut the places, so they're in breach of an act of parliament. The two ladies go to the Court of Queen's Bench, and a nice judge says, well, of course the local authority's out of order because if there's a statutory obligation, they've got to fulfil it. And so the ladies got their day in court, and presumably they sent the children to school. And what it establishes is there's a hierarchy of law. Common law is at the top. Common law is traditional. It's what we do around here. The Queen's sworn to uphold the common law. She's also sworn to comply with statutes agreed on. So a statute is an act of parliament, or it's a statement of the common law by the King, as we spoke earlier. Two meanings of the word statute. And the third form of legislation is known as a regulation or order. So an Act of Parliament could authorise, for example, the Secretary of State, in whatever topic it is, to issue regulations. And a regulation is a lesser form of order. So in the case of this business about having cuts, if a council's got an Act of Parliament that says you must provide nursery places, and they've got money in an offshore account as a result of regulations, the regulation is overridden by the Act of Parliament, and the money should come back. Okay. So what do you do if a council maladministers something? Like your application for council tax section 13A, for example. If you were to look at the Local Government Finance Act 2000, section 92, and again it'll be in the message that comes around, section 92 of the Local Government Act 2000, it says, where there's been a maladministration, the local authority may issue recompense or some other compensation. You remember, said may means must when you're exercising a right. So it's another avenue to challenge the council when there's been maladministration.
Just have a district judge
Yeah.
actually counter that and say, no, may means may.
Yeah, well, there's a number of judgments. One is Liversidge, which I'll send round, and then the other one is Julius against Bishop of Oxford. It's 1840. So there are a number of judgments, and the textbooks are against him because I invested 35 quid in the textbook last year. Yeah, I don't usually get things out of my head. Might think of thing. Okay, so Section 151, which is an ongoing project, and we're seeking to call these blighters to account. So wait for the next article. There's 2 articles on UK column about it. What was the next thing I was going to talk about? Whatever happened to the grand juries? Okay, Jane there was present. A few of you were present in Telford. I ended up with 5 judgments because we got a second one with a lady called Linda Lewis who had a child stolen by the state some years ago. We did one in her house basically, so I ended up with 5. And my strategy was to try different approaches. Linda Lewis was the first to go before the court, wasn't it, Tina? And she lives in Wales, so we go to Swansea Magistrates Court, and they basically bounced it back and said, "Who are you?" Meaning me, because I was going to be the prosecutor. Now, the Prosecution Offences Act 1985 says any person may prosecute, but unfortunately, Linda Lewis then withdrew her cooperation. She didn't want it to go any further. She's got in touch with an MEP, a nice lady, Bethan, another nice Welsh name, and she doesn't want to go down the court route. She wants Bethan Andrews, I think it is, Bethan Evans, isn't it? Yeah, to pursue it. So unfortunately, that one's out of the list. Next one out of the list is Kaz. You know, Kaz, the lady who gave the victim of the North Wales care home scandal. Her minder, shall we say, was the lady called Strider, who gave a speech. Strider went down to Plymouth and had a big argument with Brian, and has withdrawn her cooperation, and I don't know why. And with it has gone Kaz. So that's that. To tell you the truth, that's what's happened. The third one is the right to bear arms one, and that's with the Attorney General now, and I'm in dispute with him because I've asked the Attorney General to seek to reclaim this right, and he's saying you've got to pay £3,000 to a barrister, and I'm saying no, I'm not. So that's a nice one. Another one is Guy Taylor. Guy Taylor. We put Guy Taylor into the court, and I was hit with something I didn't know about, because I don't know everything. Guy hadn't finished at the magistrates' court with an appeal that he's got, okay, relevant to the same case. So when we put the accusation in, the grand jury decision in with his one, we were told this is what's the word? It's a collateral attack, and I had to look it up. I didn't know what a collateral attack was, and it's a legalese. What it means is when there's one case running, that has the monopoly until it's finished, and anything else that comes sideways using the same facts is known as collateral attack, and there's a judgment that says you can't do it. So it's only one case at a time. So Guy's got an appeal. It was in the early warning list for last week, wasn't it? But it hasn't. But the best one that's succeeding, the ones that are succeeding, we did one for not at Telford, but in Luton for Mike Grant Sinclair. And we went into, because he lives in Luton, we went into Luton Magistrates Court, which has got a good reputation. Do you remember one of the speakers at the conference? What's his name? The one you fancy?
That's not true.
The one that looks like Richard Gere.
Michael Doctor.
Michael Doctor, yeah.
It's not what I fancy him. I like Michael. Yeah. I said, doesn't it look like Richard Gere?
Whom do you fancy?
That's right. So we get the grand jury decision. We go into the magistrate court the next day, and they're ever so helpful. And they've even got a protocol for private prosecutions. So unfortunately, they're doing it anyway, and we don't have to argue the point, which is we're not asking, we're telling the grand jury decision. So they're in the air, and we're continuing. And I understand there'll be another grand juries up and down the country, like Tom Crawford's had one, what have you. And the idea is that to some extent it's applied psychology to the other side, to know that the game's up, we can see you, what have you. And one of the things I've discovered, and you remember I told the story about Tina discovering the law book with diffidatio in it? Well, a similar thing happened a couple of weeks ago. A friend of ours is we call him Soldier Mike, another ex-soldier. He's bimbling around Manchester with his brother, and they come across a charity shop, and there's a big pile of law books in the window.
No, it wasn't. It was a charity shop, and it had all bits and bobs of cans and all robots made up, and they're all sitting on law books. Yeah,
well, that's right. Yeah, so same thing. Yeah. So he goes in. He pays 30 quid for 40 law books, and he gives them to me, and he said, "John, these are really interesting." And because I'm a speed reader, because when you look up Tony Buzan, you know how to speed read. Okay. So cut a long story short, one of the first things I found is a thing called a voluntary bill of indictment. I haven't told you about this, Rob. So lo and behold, I check out voluntary bill of indictment, and it's a method to go to the county court and get a county court judge to issue an indictment against somebody, okay? And it actually says in the CPS have a page on it, the Crown Prosecution Service have a page on voluntary bills of indictment, and it says in the event of a magistrate's court refusing to cooperate, refusing to issue information. So we've got a new method of doing it, and it's preserved. It's not taken away by the 1933 Act that moved the goalposts on grand juries. So it takes time, but we're doing it.
You can form a reference to that video or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah, that's right. Okay. So the last one is how can you help me? Well, it's called the rhetoric case. Now, where does it come from? There are laws of natural justice. Okay, and we know what they are. You're entitled to know what you're accused of. who you're accused by, and you're entitled to answer. And that's the rules of natural justice, isn't it? Okay. So a tyranny doesn't do that. So the council, when they ignore your demands for council tax, that's what they're ignoring, isn't it? Yeah. So natural justice, you know what you're accused of, who by. It's got to be a live witness who comes to court, not hearsay, and you're entitled to respond. Okay. And of course, social services don't do that, do they? You're shaking your heads. Anyone who's had dealing with social services will know that. So a friend of ours, Peter Kroll, helps us with our research. He drew our attention to this about 2 months ago, wasn't it, Tina? So there's a document called the Rhetoric Case. So you wonder what the Rhetoric Case is. Some Swedish researchers writing in English have done a peer review of a paper written on how social workers take children into care. Now, for the Holly Gregg case, because Tina and I were on the Holly Gregg, and we've sworn to secrecy, we can't possibly tell you anything about it, can we?
No.
We've researched where social workers come from. Okay, this is where social workers come from. They're invented in 1948. So prior to that, it was Charity, the Children's Society or the Salvation Army. Again, looks after children, but social workers were invented by Act of Parliament as part of the welfare state. And usually their professional training is so how are they trained? Now, do you remember in Mrs. Thatcher's government there was a man called Wrighton, who was that's right, yeah, who later revealed as a paedophile, but he wrote training manuals for social services. Yeah. Now, you remember I said I was into martial arts and self-defence, and I had a friend who was a prison officer. He drew my attention to the pin down scandal. Does anyone know what the pin down scandal is? There's a training manual for social services about approved techniques for restraining violent children in children's homes. And what they said was, if a child plays up, you can lie on top of them until they calm down. So you imagine you've been raped by some horrible paedophile, yeah, okay, and another one comes and lies on you 2-9, yeah, and that was in the training manual. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, So that's what you're up against. That's how evil they are, yeah, yeah. I was shocked at the time. So a similar thing happened in America. There's a man called Alfred Kinsey who was a sexologist in inverted commas.
And a paedophile.
And a paedophile, yes, you guessed it, yeah. And in the 40s he does some research, and the research later debunked 90% of the people he interviewed about sexual behaviour were in fact convicted paedophiles. Okay, but he gets to write the training program for social workers.
It was funded by the Rockefeller.
Yeah, that's right. Needless to say, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so it's happened worldwide. So you've got this uniform syllabus. So social workers are. I'm sure they use the 240 question personality profile to get them in. They're shown violent videos, snuff movies, I understand, and that sort of thing. I did see one once as a policeman. It wasn't nice at all. The sound effects, the screaming, because they let them scream because they enjoy it. It's dreadful. Anyway, Kinsey gets. It's a worldwide scheme for social workers to do things. So anyway, these social workers in Sweden published this paper, and they identified the strategies that social workers use. So let's give you an example. And they're called persecution strategies. So if the mother says, "Good mother," she must be mad, and that's what happened to Anne Gregg, wasn't it? Anne Gregg was very nearly locked up in a mental home for the rest of her life. They fabricate evidence. They change evidence. They alter documents, all that sort of thing. So these Swedish academics identified up to 45 persecution strategies, and you can read the paper. I'll send you the link to the paper. Now, on this side of the water, if we were able to prove that things contrary to natural justice have been done in a social services case, then we've got the void concept, haven't we? Yeah. Contrary to natural justice is another reason for being void. So I need to research it. So if I were to go to my local social service and say, I'm thinking of sorting you bastards out, politely, and show me all your papers, they say no, wouldn't they? Okay. So I've got a request. Anybody that's got a set of case papers where a child has been ill-treated by social services, could you anonymise it by writing out the name and address and send it to the BCG, and they'll send it to me, and then I'll look at it with my sort of pseudo lawyer, pretend lawyer hat on, and then we might have a case, and it might help some people to get children back. So it's a serious business, and it's not very nice, but it's got to be done.
There was a guy in
Yep.
Cheshire East
Yep.
who was actually offered a reward of £1 million if anyone can prosecute any of the named people that he's named in Cheshire East Council, and it's all to do with paedophilia and child abuse.
Well, can you
And
give me
he's
my name? I can't take the money because the way I look at it, that we've got about 30 to 40 quid down, Tina. Looking, that's the most we've ever had.
He's offered £1 million reward.
Yeah, so thank you. If you could put him in touch, because what it needs is because it's somebody like me. It's like my colleague in Northern Ireland, the Northern Ireland policeman. Because he's a policeman, you get taught to do this investigation business. Yeah. Whatever job you've got, you're a farmer. I wouldn't say how to run a farm, would I? I've got no idea.
You might try.
I'm squeamish. I don't know that sort of thing. But what I happened to do for 30 years was this sort of stuff, and I'm paying it back. So.
Then you could accept
Carl Lentz.
money and
Yes, yeah, good man. Yes, yeah. Huge moustache, needs a trim, but there we are. Well, if you be my agent, then because I don't want to be compromised by people saying I'm in for the money. So
go to something
yeah.
You could fund our side of this.
Yeah.
Really, couldn't it?
You think how much expertise we've got in the room? We've got
Even a bursary.
Yeah, we've got 40 switched on people. So any questions? So what I do is, because I used to teach, first you tell them what you told them, then you tell them, then you told them what you told them. Okay? Yeah. Question. Yeah.
I need the answer to this one.
Yep.
Warrington Borough Council
Okay.
are sending out their own summonses. It's council tax. It's
Yes,
their
they wheedle that into the Criminal Justice Act 2003.
Yeah, but what they're doing is it's being signed. It's a facsimile.
Yeah,
signature.
they wheedled it in. So
But the guy
yeah.
who signed it, the guy
Yeah.
who it's a
Doesn't work for
school-
them anymore.
No, he's been in London for 8 years.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So is that not fraud?
I say it is. They say they don't because it was authorised 2003. You remember I talked about King John and the Seal? He was so posh he didn't know how to write. We had people to do it for him. Okay. I think the tradition is a court document has got to be sealed. For example, the County Court Act 1984 Section 1 says each county will have a county court. It'll be a court of record and shall have a seal. Okay. So I say that we shouldn't allow electronic signatures. We shouldn't allow cheating like that. And the reason we shouldn't allow it is one of the principles of common law is that a person entrusted with a crazy judicial authority has got to exercise it when required. Okay, so nobody's looked at that, have they? A member of the civil staff has printed the
But the guy
gute.
doesn't even work for them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so there's
barrister in London.
yeah,
He's been
yeah.
there for 8 years.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I'd say it goes back to Chapter 39 of Magna Carta. We won't move against anybody except by the law of the land. So the law of the land is there's got to be a judicial decision, judicial determination. There's no such thing as anonymous justice. There's a case called Felix Day Magistrates, isn't it? Yeah. Rob.
Power of Attorney Act 1871, to create a power of attorney over someone needed a seal and two witnesses.
Yeah.
So they need to be sealed and witnessed, yeah. 1989 they amended it. So a power of attorney act is done by action or inaction. It doesn't require witnesses, doesn't require a seal anymore. And that's the clever little trick of played. This is the mortgages have gone.
Yeah.
That's a hugely, to me, the most important piece of statute books that
Yeah. I wasn't aware of that, Rob. That's good. Yeah.
He also sticks on the summaries that he applied his mind to it. But if he can't apply it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's right. Yes. So they're so it's called hubris, isn't it? Hubris is a Jewish term, isn't it? Hubris is they're so arrogant that they think they can get away with it. They carry on. So until we hold them to account, it's our job to hold them to account. So.
What about
also
if we
the
create
actual-
our own seals and keep our own seals? for
Well,
our
people
own
used to. Their
documents?
signet ring used to be a seal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The actual payment of the council tax is actually just a statutory instrument.
It is. Yes. Yeah. That's right.
Surely
Yeah.
surely that doesn't have.
Well, you watch my video Star of the Beast. It's saying that some reasons are moral, some reasons are statutory. So statutory is the anti-terrorism. It's a criminal offence to support terrorism, lady here. Sorry, I don't know your name. She's in an early stage of trying. The only thing I would say to activists is I've discovered this is in chivalry, soldiers are taught about chivalry. There's no dishonour in yielding to overwhelming force. So you get the concept, and that's why soldiers can surrender at the last minute. But it's got to be the last minute. Okay, no dishonour in yielding to overwhelming force. Because as a soldier, getting killed is unprofessional, isn't it? You don't live to fight another
So
day.
we're not going to win with this council tax, are we?
Oh, we're winning. No, we are winning. I'm Rob's quietly confident. Gentleman at the back. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to say, our court system, I was talking to a solicitor recently and we had this conversation and I said to him, have you noticed the British justice system where they're taking people to court, suing each other, all, you know, corporations, money and all. But I said, I wonder if the judges have ever considered this. Thou shalt not steal your innocence or your childlike purity.
Well, I agree. Well, thou shalt not bear false witnesses. Because the common law is based. It's allegedly based on the Ten Commandments. As I say, I used to go to church. I don't anymore. And that's one of the things that I'm coming to. I'd rather be a pagan. There we go. Don't look the part. There we are.
John,
and an anarchist as well.
John,
yeah.
if you'd just indulge me for a second. Going back to the first part you talk, you alluded to the fact that the First World War, a facet of it was getting rid of Britain's brightest and best.
Yeah.
That leads on to a policy of European genocide.
Yeah.
This would appear to go a lot further than just, you know, fleecing us for cash. It would imply a conspiracy.
Protocol design, yes, that's right. Yeah.
So who is this cabal that's capable of this?
I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Mention the protocols the Elders design. Is anyone familiar with that?
Follow the money.
Yeah, protocols the Elders design.
Yeah, but you've got to be at a point.
Okay, for those that don't know, it goes like this. It's 1890, so 1790. In Austria, a Rothschild messenger is riding a horse and he gets struck by lightning. God's on our side, obviously. And he's dead. So the local policeman comes along and finds a dispatch, and the dispatch is a document called the protocol, now called the Protocols of the Elders Design, and it's a textbook for taking over the Goyim world. And the policeman realises it's an issue, so he reports it to his boss, and he eventually sends it up to the King in Austria, and the King in Austria copies it and sends it to all the crown heads of Europe. And in Arab countries, it's on sale in newsstands, and everybody knows about it, but here it's suppressed. Although, of course, you can get it online; they can't hide it online. And if you accept that it's real, it's pretty damn professional, because you have to bear in mind that the Jews have a higher IQ. Average IQ is 112, 120.
Who developed the IQ test?
Yeah. A Jew, was it? Yeah, that's a Jew. Yeah. Okay. Well, my experience is they're good at the gag, aren't they? They can talk. Yeah.
This isn't about money. This is about power.
Yeah.
They actually believe that they're gods.
Yeah.
And they believe that they are been put on this earth to take full control and to get rid of all.
Yeah, that's right. And they're blatant about it. They're open about it, aren't they? Yes. Yeah. God's chosen and so on.
Yeah. The Stones actually say that their plan is to get rid of 95% of.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. The guy's saying so. So, gentlemen,
Are you familiar with the Shetar?
The Shemitah that happened last week, or didn't happen last week? Yes. Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting the way the Bank of England was formed with William of Orange, who also came from a particular jurisdiction.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Running under the same people.
Okay. So, can I ask you to find out about this chap with the problem? And we're an expert system because we know the same stuff, don't we? Yeah. And I was able to share stuff. Some new, some you knew already. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. So there's a scene from Zulu. You know the film Zulu. Just to leave you with this. The Fuzzy Wuzzies are lining up with their spears and things, and there's a youngest soldier in the Welsh regiment, and he's standing at the line. His top lip's going over it, and he says to the colour sergeant, "Why us, colour sergeant?" And the colour sergeant says, "Because there's nobody else left." Okay, can I leave you with that then?